Born and raised in Moncton, New Brunswick. So it's the hub city of New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, and PEI. So hence there isn't hub city. There's a hub city everywhere. Yeah, I'm sure in BC it's Vancouver. That's why it's hub city. It's not just pertaining to Moncton, New Brunswick. It's just there's a hub city. Everyone kind of gets together and then they do what they want to do.
Warning. The 4x4 Canada podcast contains discussion about exploring mountains, camping beside lakes, and enjoying the outdoors. Guests also talk about jumping race trucks side by side, racing 1,000 horsepower rigs across mud pits, and jumping monster trucks over stacks of buses. None of this is for the faint of heart. The 4x4 Canada podcast is not responsible for bringing out your inner adrenaline junkie or making you want to get out there and explore the back roads from coast to coast. The 4x4 Canada podcast is not responsible for broken parts due to jumping your vehicle, hitting mud poles too hard, crossing deep streams, and doing other dumb shit. However, we will take credit for inspiring you to explore mountaintops, spend quality time outdoors with your friends, or meeting new like-minded people, and most importantly of all, following your dreams. Hey everybody, welcome to the 4x4 Canada podcast. I'm your host Wes.
And I'm your host Trisha.
And I'm Ryan from Hub City Overlanding.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining up today with us, Ryan. We definitely appreciate you taking your time on the tail end of a long weekend. Mm-hmm. And I know you enjoyed it. You're sitting out on the beach. Before we get into it, though, I just want to remind our listeners that if you enjoy the show and you like what we're doing, please leave us a comment or a review on your local podcast app. And just, well, it doesn't really do anything for us, but just makes us feel good. So some people says that it makes you show up better in the listings. It doesn't. It just makes Trisha and I feel better for what we're doing. So if you do like us, do like what we're doing, please leave us a comment or leave us a what the hell am I trying to say?
5-star review.
There we go. So once again, we're talking to Ryan from Hub City Overland, and you're on both on YouTube and Instagram, and we see lots of your videos on both of them. You're our second East Coaster on the podcast. We had the guys from Roam Wild on a little while ago. So,
yeah,
and they did an interesting show with us. And so it's kind of neat that we're hopping from the last week we had Van City Adventure from Vancouver, Lower Mainland area on. This week we're hopping over to the East Coast with Ryan from Hub City Overland. And I believe next week we're going to be into Ontario with a couple of guests. And we're just all over the place. We really want to thank everybody for listening from all over. We look at the stats and we see that we've got listeners in Vancouver, Ontario. We've got listeners in India, believe it or not, Iraq. We got listeners all over the place in Germany. So really want to thank each and every one of you guys and ladies for listening to the show. Ryan, let's get into it with you. Hub City Overland. You're on the East Coast. Where are you from?
Born and raised in Moncton, New Brunswick. So it's the hub city of New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, and PEI. So hence there isn't hub city. And I can explain a bit more of that. But yeah, Moncton, New Brunswick, long story short.
I was going to ask what the hub city meant. I assumed it was something like that.
Yeah, it is. But the reality is there's a hub city everywhere. I'm sure in BC, it's Vancouver. I think that's what it is. It's kind of like a hub city of a greater area. So that's why it's hub city. It's not just pertaining to Moncton, New Brunswick. It's just there's a hub city. Everyone kind of gets together and then they do what they want to do. In this case, it's Overland.
Right. Gotcha. So did you grow up in a camping and exploring family?
Kind of, I guess. So baseball was my sport. Although camping in winter for hockey is not ideal. I grew up camping at baseball tournaments or going away for the weekend. Because we travel a lot playing in provincial baseball, and so that's what I did. My mother would try to take me out as much as I can with the team, or even just her and I. So it was the extent growing up as a kid, because I am a bit of a city boy. So
well, that's changed a little bit for now. I mean, New Brunswick, all the whole East Coast is absolutely gorgeous. As much as I say that you guys are all on the wrong side of the Rockies, anywhere Alberta on, but we do have a beautiful country. New Brunswick, PEI, Nova Scotia, Newfoundland, they're all absolutely beautiful. So I can understand wanting to get out and explore over there for sure. So when did you start getting more into the camping and exploring?
That would have been 2019 or late 2018, early 2019. I had bought my first tent because I thought it was cool. I was tired of the ground tent, of course. So I bought that, and my girlfriend and I just started exploring because I bought my Tacoma in 2018, and then 2019 we started to explore a bit more with that. So that's kind of where the stomping grounds, or when it started, I guess, more or less, than the stomping grounds. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, the rooftop tent, there's pros and cons to them, right? But I've had a couple different ones and I keep on going back to them. It just makes life so much easier, especially when it's the rainy season or whatever, right? So it makes it so much more friendly.
It is.
I'm trying to talk Trisha into getting one, but
I know. I'm still ground tenting. I'm a ground tenter.
There's nothing wrong with it, honestly. Like, you don't have to have a rooftop tent at all, but I love the gazelles. Like, actually, I was just at the beach this weekend, and a friend of mine has a gazelle, and I love it. It's a phenomenal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's absolutely nothing wrong with ground tenting. I've spent lots of nights in ground tents, and there's something to be said about them. But it's just when it comes to those rainy seasons, it kind of sucks getting the rain on your sleeping bag and stuff like that. So
that happened to me last time camping. It was great. So that's something I do want to look into probably next year. Just getting different options of getting a rooftop tent.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The gazelles are neat. I don't know if you've seen those, Trisha, but I know that Mike and the gang down at Red Bear, they stock them down there, and they're quick and easy to pop up. They're not like those old tents where you got 14 poles trying to feed them through the things. And so they're definitely an idea as well.
What do you have, Trisha, for your rig?
So I do drive a Jeep JL 2018. Yeah.
Fun.
So she goes off-roading a lot, as much as I wanted to this year. But usually when we do go wheeling, we don't tent. We've just kind of started recently doing it overnight and staying out. We usually just do like day trips. So now that the crew that I go with are starting to get like airdrops, and we're thinking about getting a couple of rooftop tents, I think that's going to be moving into that direction soon, because ground tenting, sometimes like here in Ontario, we have like a lot of trails where have a lot of rocks. So if we're tenting, we're sleeping on, hard, really, really, really hard surfaces. So not in the best terrain, but yeah. So yeah.
It's fair enough. Exactly. I mean, one of the other concerns too is that's probably pushing it for your underground parking too, isn't it?
Underground parking too. Yeah. So that's another concern. It was like, and I want to get lifted too again. So I'm like, how much clearance can I get in this garage getting in and out? Like, so I have a storage unit, so I can like store it if I really do need to, and then kind of work it that way. I can kind of take it off and on. If it's like a light thing that I can do myself, which a lot of them seem that they're pretty light and you can pop up pretty fast. But yeah, the clearance.
Yeah, it's a tough thing for sure. So what brought on the Hub City Overland YouTube channel?
Well, look, I've always loved production. I have an audio background. Like, I worked in between radio, live, and everything for 15 years, almost 15 years. And where I love production, I've always loved the visuals and seeing things, documenting it. I always saw someone else do it on YouTube, and I was like, you know what? There's not much in East Coast. There's a few out there, and I figured I'd just give it my shot. But the twist was more the having people. It's the more of the community, because everyone loves to see their rigs. Everyone loves to see their rigs. That was the main reason why I kind of started the YouTube channel.
And of course, your Instagram goes hand with that. You do post a bit more on the Instagram because it's obviously an easier thing to do than to throw up a quick picture or a quick video rather than doing a full edit on a video as well. But so, don't forget to check out Hub City Overland on Instagram as well. Let's talk about your Tacoma. I love my Access cab Tacoma, and I see you chose the Access cab as well. How come you went with the Access cab over the double cab?
Well, there's a funny story. I had the choice of doing the double cab. It was a sport, obviously. It was in between the 12 and 15, 2012 to 2015. But the reason I went with my Access cab is because of the color. I actually like the color. The double cab was just a white one. We say plain white, but this was the spruce mica. There's not many out there, and I just love the color of it, and that's why I chose it. So that's why I have
Well, there's nothing wrong with that. I love my Access cab. It is white, so screw you.
it. Hey, they look great. They look great. It's just I think it was just that really what popped out. And
Yeah.
another thing is I really wanted a truck because I have a 40-year-old motorcycle. And that tends to break down every once in a while. So it's good to have a bed. But now that I got into overlanding, that's a whole different story. So, yeah.
I find I prefer the long bed. And I specifically went for an Access cab with a long bed so I could have a longer bed to put all the stuff. But I also have my fridge and stuff like that right behind the driver's seat. And then I've built a platform right across, and it gives me more than enough storage, right? So,
That's awesome.
but yeah, I love the longer bed versus that real tiny bed. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what do you got done to the Tacoma?
A lot. Well, at least I think it's a lot. I mean, it's never changing. Let's face it. We all know that.
Yep.
Trisha, you're talking about, going higher. Well, that's definitely a Jeep thing, right? So because we live in a rust belt, let's face it, there's a lot of rust here, salt and whatnot. I went with the basic, just Bilstein lift, just a second notch because I didn't want to extend the preload. But I've got the iBuck 2.5-inch coil, so that it lifts it more or less from the coil. So just have that all four corners. A lot of Princess Auto parts, to be quite honest. Auto rack, slide out, Princess Auto fridge, camp shower for the longer trips. My favorites, at least within the last year or so, was the coastal off-road because I was starting to get into situations where I was going to need to self-recover, like pull myself out. So I needed something to mount the winch. So that's what I went with for a bumper. And I went with the full tubing. So it looks like the Aussie style. So yeah, I love it, honestly.
That's great. Now, Coastal Off-Road, I mean, they're a great company. They're based here in BC.
Mhm.
And as a DIY bumper, and love the fact that you supported the Canadian on that. How much did that cost to ship over there?
Okay, so Hub City Overland is a community, right?
Right.
It's a thing where we have a Facebook group. I've got to mention that we actually do have a Facebook group. If you want to join it, Hub City Overlanding, that's all you got to check. It's on all social media. And basically, me and another guy, he wanted another piece on his third gen Forerunner, and I was like, well, what if we do a group buy? And so that's what we did. Is we made a post like, hey, we need X amount of kits at the very minimum, and you save. I think it was like $40 or dollars on shipping or something. It was $60 on shipping, and on top of that was like another like 10% off or 15% off on the items. So I got skid plates and a bumper for, I would say, about $1,800, which is still cheap at the end of the day. And obviously that was like during COVID, so like there's still a bit of cost there. But on top of that, I put $5 into someone I know who knew how to weld, and a couple hundred in bed liner and paint, and then called it a day. So like really, all of that together is the price of a prefab, pre-powder coated, maybe even less ship.
Yeah.
So,
And you got skid plates out of it.
And that, which have been super useful. I did something stupid recently, but that, and it's Canadian. And that's the one thing I really want to try to stay with is, Canadian beef.
Yeah, you've been a really big supporter of Canadian companies, and we'll get into that in a second. But everything I've heard about Coastal has been wonderful. Don't think I've really heard a bad thing about Coastal Off-Road and their bumpers and skid plates and that. So that's actually on my list of plans as well too. So let's roll back to, you mentioned some of your camping gear and stuff like that is a lot through Princess Auto. And I know that they brought out their overlanding stuff within the last couple of years. And I've heard some mixed reviews on it. What are your thoughts on some of the stuff you've gotten out of them?
For the most part, great. The only thing I would recommend is go with a different hardware. Like my rack, for example, it's a Northern Ridge, so Princess Auto Special, or go with that because I think they got bought out by OVS or something. The pieces for the rack itself are great. The bolts, the nuts, and everything are not because they kept unstripped. I was stubborn. It was like minus 25, 30, and I put it together in my living room, test fit it in front of the truck in the front door, and then like back and forth because I don't have a garage. And overall, honestly, I've had great luck with Princess Auto
good.
stuff. So yeah, I mean, it's just, it's all, you're saving a few bucks here and there. They always have scratch and dent sales, which, I mean, really can replace things with like $20, $50 of whatever, mostly hardware, let's face it. So, like, it overall, I think it's great. Yes, there are mixed reviews, but let's face it, they have a great warranty. So
That's true. That's
Yeah.
true. And like you say, they've probably got grade 5 hardware or less in there. So I mean, you can easily upgrade to a grade 8 very, very
yeah.
easily, right? So
100%.
yeah, no, that's good to know. I mean, especially somebody might even want to do that before they install it,
Yeah.
figure out what's in there, and probably not a bad idea. So I think any of your less expensive brands are going to be the same way. So how's the fridge worked out for you?
So far, so good. It's
Yeah.
not the ideal, like it's got the handles built in. It's like the scoop handles.
Okay. Yeah.
But, using like my backyard mechanic ideas, I just got aluminum angle essentially and just measured everything, built an exoskeleton, and now I can strap it down to my slider. So love it.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect.
And it
Where-
keeps things cool. That's what matters.
Exactly. Right. That's the main thing. As long as it's keeping stuff cool. Where do you have it mounted? It's in the bed?
Yeah. So I have a Princess out of Northern Ridge slide out, a kitchen slide
Okay.
out. And
Yeah.
on the top, it has the mounting points for like a tie down. I don't know what it's called. I think it's like T bracket or something along the lines.
Yeah.
And I just literally put it on, strap it with regular ratchet straps, and it pulled. Like I've had the truck on like 35 degrees before, and it's held perfect.
Wow.
Nice.
So yeah, it's fine. So
Nice. And that slide out, is that the one with the sink and stuff like that in it?
yeah,
is it
it's
just
like a removable
basin or something?
collapsible, like
Yeah.
dish or a
Yeah.
bucket of some sort. So yeah,
Do you find it comes in handy that way?
yeah, it does honestly, and it's got a cutting board too. So if you want to cut stuff, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. Honestly,
That-
my girlfriend loves it more than I do. So
Did you name your Tacoma? Like, have you named it? Does it have a name or just a special like nickname? Or I know more. It's like a Jeep thing. Like we name our Jeeps. Like everyone has a name for a Jeep. Like cannot have a name. So
yeah, no, that's fair. I follow a lot of Jeeps. Honestly, I'm stubborn. I think it might be. I wouldn't use the word stupid. I'm just stubborn. I like to prove that some way. Now I know my limit. But to answer your question, yes, it does have a name.
okay.
It's Florence because it
Florence.
reminds me of like a forest color because it's a dark
Yeah.
green, right?
It's our
But we call her Flory for short.
oh Flory.
So,
Nice.
she's been taking a beating, but I mean, she's rock solid. Honestly, I love her.
Awesome. So you made a killer winter wheeling video a while ago. I
think know
actually
which one
enjoyed
you're
that.
talking-
Do you prefer winter wheeling or summer?
That's a loaded question, honestly. Okay, I'll say this: each are great. Both have its challenges when it comes to
Mhm.
terrain wise. I love both. I like that. That's going to be my best answer because I mean, with snow, like I mean, maybe BC you have quite a bit of that, but you take it slow. You're not meant to go fast. So obviously, some cases you can, but low PSI, can crawl it, whatever. Tacoma can crawl, to be fair, but it's just interesting because you can get, you can veer off 2 or 3 inches and you're in the snow. Like you're deep in the snow and then you have to recover, which is fun, honestly. But summer, like I think if I'm going to choose, I'm going to choose summer because in New Brunswick, we have a lot of laws when it comes to, ATVs and snowmobiles. So we lose about 80 to 90% of our trails in December 15th, I believe, to April.
Same idea as Ontario then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Same with Ontario. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so if I'm going to choose summer because of that, just because I like to see different places or even go to the same spot just if I want to relax for the weekend kind of thing. So yeah, I'll go with summer. But for challenge, winter is fun as heck. So I love it.
Is your snow quite wet over there?
It's everything. To be
Okay.
quite honest.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we get that, like, when it's compact, it's beautiful. Like,
Mm.
up here, passes through, it packs a pass. Like the video that you're referring to.
Yeah.
That what, like, it's kind of a path, but it was only my friend Sam and David, they built that over the course of a few months. Technically underneath that is all swamp. Straight up.
Okay.
So like they built it, and they were actually surprised to see that go through. Like they're like, it's the first Tacoma or track that we've.
Yeah.
So.
It's a really neat video, and it's something you guys, like, so you have to go back to Hub City Overland on YouTube and check it out. He's got a couple of snow wheeling videos on there. So you guys get some pretty nasty storms in the wintertime though, don't you?
Oh yeah, always. And if we're not out, I guess, because technically we don't have a lot of trails to go in, but if we're not out, we're out recovering people in snowstorms, and that's something we love to do, is really just to help people get out.
Get those nurses to work, eh?
Yeah.
Trisha's a nurse, so that's why.
Yeah, no, it's a thing. It's a thing here. There's a couple of Jeep communities, and actually we're Hub City Overland partnered with Jeep Nuts, and that's something that they do often is drive nurses or anyone really emergency wise to either shift or back home, essentially.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
It's awesome. That's cool.
Trisha doesn't have an excuse not to go to work in the winter.
No, I don't. I literally don't. I'm literally just checking through the snow.
Yep.
Whatever high snowstorm it is.
I mean, that's what you love a 4x4. Like anything with 4x4, really. And good tires.
Yeah, exactly. I have no excuse. So yeah, I usually am the first one there.
Yeah. Unless it's down, right?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
It's not.
No, well, actually my Jeep is down right now. Or the last 2 weeks. But yeah.
You hasn't figured it out yet, eh?
Oh, no. It's still, I don't know. I have to find out tomorrow. So then July went on.
Oh no.
And
it's a Jeep thing.
It's a Jeep thing. And there was not a lot of oil in there. And I did an oil change, I say maybe about in July. So once we started looking, right now, he replaced some coils. So coil spark plugs got replaced and changed. And there was one side that he had to go back over and go back. But he says he can't release the coil and mount to where the coil mounts to. So he can't get one of the sides off. And the one side he did change, when he runs the engine, there's a lot of low pressure in one of the sections.
Ooh.
Yeah.
That's accurate.
Yeah, so he's been running pressure bucket, and then he's still trying to get the other side off. The last time I spoke to him, which was on Thursday. So I don't know. And then he's like, well, then we might have to go into the head gasket. I was like, don't say that word, don't. So yeah.
Sadly, that's a Jeep thing, unfortunately, from what I've heard. So
yeah, so she was in some surgery, I guess, for the last 2 weeks. So I haven't had a Jeep. Yeah. So we'll see what happens.
At least you got a motorbike.
Yeah. So I've been driving around on the bike, and it was so hot today. I was burning. I was like, oh, I wish I had my Jeep. At least I could take off the doors, cruise around, be so fascinated.
No, that's interesting too, bringing up the doors. I know in Ontario you guys are allowed to run it. I believe BC is the only province where you're not allowed to run without doors.
Factory?
Yeah, like a Jeep kind of idea. On a pre-86, like your CJ7s, your CJ5s, etc., doors were an option on the Jeeps. And you could have a soft top, right? And you could also, the door itself was an option. And so anything after 87, so your YJs, TJs, etc., you're not allowed to run without a door. Lots of guys do it without the door. A lot of guys will run with a tube door, but there's usually quite a few people posting up on Facebook. They got busted for a $150 ticket or whatever. So I think BC is the only province that does that.
That's interesting considering it's factory that can come up.
Yeah, totally. Right. So but it was sold with doors, and that's their thing that they're sticking to is that, and there's been court cases on it and stuff like that. So it's the fact that it was sold with doors.
Oh my God, this is Jeep without doors, please. Get delivery on the doors in a couple of months.
We can ride a motorcycle, but we can't have a Jeep without doors, right?
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah.
That's rough, though. I hope that gets fixed, honestly. I know that feeling.
Yeah, it's just been, I
Yeah.
just like the mess, like he'll text me and I'm just like, how bad is bad? That's all I have. I'm like, can it be fixed? That's all I need to know. Yeah, we're already like looking for a truck also because our other car just died recently in the beginning of summer. So we only have the Jeep and the motorcycle and the dirt bike. But my dirt bike is not strictly cool. I can't drive it around on the road.
There it is. Yep.
So we have been looking at the Tacomas and the Rams. So we'll see.
That's
Fair
a big
enough.
difference.
That's
Yeah.
a big difference.
The
Yeah.
Ram, I think it would really be tough for me to go back to a full size vehicle because I've been in mid sized vehicles for so long. But just parking a Ram and stuff like that would, obviously you get used to it, right? But
Yeah. Well, just a different, like we did that. We went and we test drove a Chevrolet, a Tacoma, a Ram. And yeah, there's just a difference, like driving and also parking. We're like, wow, okay, we can see like the sizes, like the beds. And we're like, okay, this is going to be like a different, it's like a new venture if we go into this route. Yeah. Yeah.
Yep. Without a doubt. It's different,
Yeah.
but you know what? You'll get used to it.
You
over
get used
time.
to it. Yeah.
Yeah. I know when I went from the Xterra to the Tacoma, I couldn't get over how long the hood is on the Tacomas. I'm like, this thing feels like when you're sitting there, it feels like it's 4 feet longer than the heights. I'm like, okay, I need to get a front camera so I can see over the hills.
Really though.
Yeah. So let's get back to the main reason we came on tonight. Let's talk about Ryan and upsetting Overland.
Hey, I love just chit chatting. That's awesome.
Oh, it's all good. Yeah.
Yeah.
We tend to get a little off topic sometimes, so it's nothing wrong with it. So I know you've been a big fan of working with some Canadian companies. We interviewed Ian from Afraid Not Ropes on Lucky episode 13 back in October. I see you're running one of his new winch lines, the Magnus. Can you explain to our listeners a little bit about Ian and what the Magnus line is all about?
Yeah, sure. Well, let's start off with Ian, of course. So,
yeah,
love the dude. Honest guy. I don't know if you've got the chance to actually hang out with him in person yet. Have you?
Not yet, just because he's in Ontario. But I do have the plan to go out next summer. But yeah.
Okay. What about you, Tricia? Have you been able to hang out with him in person?
Yes, I've met him at the last Overlanding Expo or Overlandeth North event. Yes.
Okay. So awesome. So I got a chance to hang out with him twice this year, March for the Toronto Buckman show, and then the Overland North event while I was there for Adventure Trail. So Ian, honestly, love the guy. First off, I would say he's a giant. He's a big guy. I mean, I'm an average size guy, but he's an honest guy. He says it like it is. But what grabs my attention more is his character. Is like the fact that he stands tall on his products is what kind of got me into it. But also the fact that I had like 2 or 3 friends tell me the same thing. And I mean, obviously, one thing is, when a couple of people keep saying the same thing, and then actually meeting the big guy Ian, and then being able to hang out with him, that's 100% true. I love the dude. He's a fun guy to be around. And as far as like the Magnus winch line, it's funny. So I reached out to him, and I'm sure others did because I wasn't the only one doing the testing of like the first couple versions. And I was like, Ian, you got to make something that has no metal, like no hooks, no nothing, like just straight, your soft shackle, whatever, something like someone else's product, like Leaping Jeep, that Freedom Winch line or Freedom. Anyway, so I was like, I love it. You should do it. And then he said, actually, we're kind of, playing around with it. And even though it's kind of evolved a little bit, I still have the first one. And that's just a true testament to the product.
Wow.
So I mentioned that you brought up the winter reeling thing is the first time I ever tested it. And I actually told my friend, both of them on 37s, twin locks, Jeeps. And I was like, okay, I'm on 33s, little Tacoma. And I was like, I want to test my winch line out. Let's take me somewhere. And sure enough, they did. They did. It's a trail called Kilometer 9. And it's that Tacoma should not have been there. But that winch took me out in every single time I was stopped. So, yeah. And the beautiful thing is he makes it, and it's Canadian as well.
Yep.
We keep coming back to Canadian products. Love the dude, honestly. But the main reason I love that is because it's safe. There's no metal. There's that peace of mind. And it's a little different, too. That's the biggest thing.
Yep. So it's basically got a loop at the end of it that is
Yeah.
weaved or braided back upon itself. And in that way, it acts as a shackle. So basically gets rid of any need for metal on that
Yeah.
combination that you're going to be using. So,
And
yeah.
there's a hook that goes onto the knob end. There's different
Right.
sizes too. So, I mean, I just went with the standard because I'm going to pull a tree, which I have done several times. I'm just going to take a tree saver and pull it with
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. But it's basically got the soft shackle built right into the winch line. Right.
yeah.
So,
Yeah, nothing but rope. So,
yeah.
love it.
Yeah, it's a great thing. And you're right, Ian's a great guy, and he's been a big supporter of like the Trillium Off-Road Recovery Group. He's a big supporter of the four-wheel drive industry or four-wheel drive world, especially in Ontario. That's where he's
Yeah.
based, but all over Canada. You know, we've got some guys here in the West Coast running his products. I mean, you're on the East Coast, and he's the one nice thing I think I like about his products or the way he presents himself too is he will post videos of him testing his products
Yeah.
on the, you know, the where they stretch it out to see where the brake strength is and stuff like that. And he's like, there's no bullshit with him, right? He just posts up what he actually, you know, what his testing results are with a video on it. And
Yeah, I love
his
that. Like he kept on sending me updates, like with the Magnus winch line, the soft winch line.
yeah,
He just is like, man, check this out. Like he would like show me and everything to actually, you know, a true result rather than just claiming it to be, you know. So
yeah, which a lot of this, you know, that's one thing with recovery gear people. I mean, yes, we would love you to purchase stuff from Afraid Not Ropes and support him as basically because he's local Canadian and even for that matter, Freedom Recovery Gear out of BC. They're made in Canada as well too. But so we'd love you guys to support those local Canadian manufacturers. But wherever you buy your recovery gear, make sure to look at the labels and see what it's rated to. And if it is rated, because there's a lot of stuff out there that's not even rated. Right. So if that's the only thing you get from this interview today is look at your recovery gear, see what it's rated at, and then go from there. So
I do want to point out something is because I listened to that episode too, and I remember Ian saying like, of course, if you have to start off with like a Princess Auto, you know, kinetic rope or like that's great if it's going to get you out of a pinch. But again, like the point that you brought up, like where the rating, that's important. Rating, sizes, like that's a huge importance when it comes to.
Yeah, definitely. And especially, I mean, we all notice, you know, things are tight these days and recovery gear can be expensive. Ian does, I think, a very good price on his stuff, but there is cheaper stuff out there, but just be aware that it is cheaper for a reason,
Cheaper,
right? So,
exactly. Cheaper.
Yeah.
yeah, definitely. So we also had Kevin from Strike Force 67 back on in episode 22 in late December.
Yeah.
Kevin is the Canadian distributor of Go Tread boards. Those are the fold up and stackable recovery boards. And he's got a couple other products. Trisha, you bought something off him at the Overland North event.
I did. I bought the body bag.
The body bag.
I can fit in this. Like I can actually fit in here.
So big.
I don't know if you heard that episode, Ryan. We were talking to, I think it was Mike from
Michael, Michael.
Runner on Instagram. He's got a killer Forerunner, but he's like his girlfriend actually crawled into it.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
I have to go watch or listen to it later, honestly.
Yeah,
So.
yeah. It was pretty funny. We're like, that's a perfect body bag, you know, so you don't get blood all over the interior. It kind of went in a weird way, but
we're like, oh, that's went deck really fast.
But it prompted Trisha to go buy one. So I don't know.
I know. Like I watch way too many murders and mysteries. Okay, but it's perfect.
That's awesome.
It is so massive. So like I do have it. I run a check top, so I have a slant back. So I do lose room when I'm wheeling if I have a whole bunch of gear in my back. So for that, I'm like, hey, I can throw like wood in there. I can throw like dirt bike gear. I can put my recovery gear when I need it in there and so much more. So yeah, it's great. It's great. It's really nice. And it's the quality of the bag is amazing too.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, I do remember delivering because they're made in East Coast, funny enough. So, but I do remember remember delivering a bunch of those bags, and it took 2 totes. Say a bunch, it was probably more like 6 or 8, I can't remember, but it took 2 totes to put them in from New Brunswick all the way to Overland North.
So just to let our listeners know what we're talking about, like the body, what we
Yeah.
coined the body bag.
Sorry,
It's like
Kevin.
it's like a trasharoo. It goes onto the spare tire carrier or
Mhm.
onto the back of your tailgate or whatever. So that's what we're talking about. You can check it out. It's strikeforce67.ca, I believe.
Yep.
Yep.
And it's just a big trasharoo style bag, but it's a lot bigger. And what he originally designed it for was to put those fold up tables that go onto the wheels. I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head.
The tailgate table. He calls it a tailgate, but it does come from the spare. It comes down this. I don't know how to explain it but it comes down from the
So you can store that inside of the body bag as well as other stuff too, right? But
that's hilarious. Yeah, no, it's a great Kevin's a great guy. Actually, funny enough, I call him Swiss Army Kevin. He always has everything.
Yeah.
That's every time I'm with him. Like he comes down to New Brunswick or I'm in Ontario. He has everything. So I got that. Give me a moment, and then goes. I mean, Go Treads. Honestly, he's also got the Go Treads. I love them. I honestly I wouldn't go out without it because it's stackable. You can use it to level, contouring, for traction board storage. It's great. It's amazing. And I mean, obviously, Kevin did say this. I know because I heard this episode is like bridging is the downfall. That's the only downfall to it. But I mean, I would recommend this for anyone in their shop cart, regardless. Actually, I have a few friends that I met over the last few weeks that were like, "Go Treads, let's talk about it." And I pull it out and I show it. So honestly, I'm just like, you got to do it. Honestly, it's good to have. So
yeah, the fact that they fold up so small. I mean, that's one thing with say the Mat Tracks or whatever is that they're so big, right? You got to put them on the side of your rack or whatever. These Go Treads fold up small. They're like a foot long or whatever it is.
If that, yeah.
Yeah, and 4 inches high or 6 inches high or whatever, so you can put them behind your seat, whatever. And what you mentioned is that they follow the contour, and I was thinking about that, and I'm thinking I can get a set for my snow wheeling season coming up because that's one thing I've found is with the snow is having to dig out so much snow, and you're still trying to get that Max Trax in there on an angle, and it's rubbing up against your bumper and stuff like that. Whereas I really would like to try these Go Treads, so they kind of lay to the land kind of idea, form to the land. So I'd like to see how they work out in the snow.
You get the extra large one.
Yeah.
The extra space is good to have for momentum, especially.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
100%.
Awesome. Yeah. And Kevin's another great guy from Ontario as well
I call him
too.
once in a while. I'm like, hey, how's hockey? Kind of thing. So he's a great guy. Him and I are goalies, so that's why.
Okay.
We have that connection. Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah, he's a very big hockey fan, isn't he?
Oh yeah. Has he ever shown you photos of his garage?
I've seen a few. Yeah.
Oh,
interview. He was in his graduate when we did our interview.
Oh, hey, that's so cool.
And he's done a lot of stuff with the hockey industry, overall with his volunteering and stuff like that. So great guy. Again, Kevin at Strike Force 67. Adventure Trail Gear makes some great soft products. You're wearing their shirt, today.
Old ones, they got new designs.
Oh, okay. It's one of the old shirts. That's why you got it.
Well, I mean, it's dirty from the weekend, so I didn't want to, so yeah.
Yeah, it's all good. But yeah, Adventure Trail Gear. Let's talk about them. I know you're friends with them and you've done some work with them. You've attended some shows with them and helping them out that way. Everything I've heard has been a great deal, has been really good about them. Can you explain to our listeners what Adventure Trail Gear is?
Yeah, I'll do my best. I mean, I'm not the owner or anything.
No,
it's just
no.
I love the products, and I'm also friends. I was friends first, and then I like the products. So Trail Gear in the name Adventure Trail Gear is the biggest, I guess, giveaway with it. The biggest thing though is it's not just off-roading that they kind of built their lines on. So yes, you've got the body bag kind of trasheroo style. So there's a few different versions of that, and then you've got backpacks. Like it's all inspired by military background and people who have ideas that just want to kind of, come to fruition with it. So, yeah, so like that's the beautiful thing with it. And the other aspect is they're super durable. I mean, I've tested, I honestly, this past weekend, I touched someone's trasher, like legit trasher, and the buckle broke and
Oh,
the
no.
seam broke off. And it wasn't even a year old. I
Oh,
was like,
wow.
you need an adventure trail gear. He goes like, you got to get
Yeah.
one. You got the butcher to have it. But long story short, it's military inspired for outdoor products or trail gear. So backpacks, fanny packs, spare tire bags, tailgate bags. You've got all that. And on top of that, you can choose your colors, which is the beautiful thing about it is make it
Oh.
custom to you. So that's
Yep.
what I love about it is all of that. And the guys are great. The service is amazing between Nigel and Nick. So yeah.
And one of the things I was looking at a while ago on their website was the tool roll.
Oh yes.
Yeah, I was like,
That's pretty
okay,
cool.
that's yeah.
It's very different. I mean, if you want something, slightly different to what you would like for yours, you can probably bounce ideas between it. But
Mhm.
honestly, I love it. It's so durable. Like I've seen some store bought ones from like Canadian Tire just rip up within the first couple months. This not so much. So
Yeah.
it's awesome. It's all handmade. So that's a beautiful thing. I forgot to mention that. Everything's handmade in Fredericton, New Brunswick. So that's I've met the seamstress. Everything's designed by Nick. I can go on about it, but honestly,
Well,
like you have to get him on. Honestly, like that's yeah.
that he is definitely on my list, and I will be name dropping you for sure. So, but yeah,
You'll
no,
talk about that.
another great company,
Yeah.
another great Canadian company, Adventure Trail Gear, and I know that you and I like both talking about Canadian companies as much as possible. That is one of the reasons that we started the podcast was to promote these Canadian companies that a lot of people may not know. Everybody knows the Trash Shooter name, but they may not know Adventure Trail Gear, right? So,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, gotta go with Canadian. Honestly, at this point, I love
yeah,
it.
exactly. So let's name drop some of the folks that you go wheeling with. You were already on the list, but Zach from the Lost Spike on Instagram sent an email, recommended we get you on the pod, and it's like, okay, well, let's bump him a few spots up. I do it totally random. When I go through, like Trisha's got her own list going, and I've got my list going, and we kind of just totally hit random. Like, okay, let's take the fifth person in the list and go from there, right? But that's the only fair way of doing it, I think. But Zach from the Lost Spike on Instagram sent an email, said, hey, you got to get Ryan on. He's a huge supporter of Canadian overland industry, and he's a really a great guy, which was still debatable, but we're no, in all seriousness, it's all good. But so Zach, he's got a little bit of a different rig.
Well, yeah, he does. So he has had. Let's put that. He had a Hyundai Tucson, a very gutless vehicle. Let's just put it at that in simple words. But he made his own twists into it, and it's actually one of my favorite rigs of all time that I've seen. I mean, there's wonderful Forerunners, there's amazing Jeep. We can't forget the Tacomas, but there's so many out there. It's a little, it can feel oversaturated. But Zach, what he did with the Hyundai Tucson, like I love it, and what he does
Hyundai.
with it, you just don't see that going in the trails. Like it's almost like that meme where you see you're a Jeep or whatever it is. You go through these like hard trails, and then you see the Subaru, like the Subaru Outback, like that made it to the same spot. That's Zach for you, essentially. So I love it. Yeah, I love that rig.
Yeah, you guys had a good video, I don't know, a month or two ago about you and him are out wheeling, and it's obviously not doing, super hardcore stuff. He's not going to be doing that winter wheeling
No,
that you were doing
no.
with the Jeep Snap, but it was actually kind of surprising where he went.
Yep.
And it just takes him out of person knowing their vehicle and knowing their skills and their where
Yep.
not to go as well too, right? So
Well, long story short, shortcut's not a shortcut. We thought it was a shortcut, but it was. Well, at least for him. So he was pushing it. Like, yeah.
So one of the things, speaking about some of your videos lately, one of the things I gotta ask you, is there always that much water over there?
It can be. Yeah.
There seems to be a lot of water in the last few videos.
Yeah, And that's a scary thing. I mean, it's everywhere. I feel like the more you get elevated, the more there may be. But it can be scary sometimes. Like, actually, this past weekend, Zach, oddly enough, of all people, had to pull out a 2003 4Runner because he hydrolocked in a
Oh,
puddle. Yeah, and we're just like, oh, that sucks. But
Yeah.
I mean, it was just some other guy off-roading. He went in the water too quick, and he didn't realize how deep it is. So
right.
that's the thing is like I always have a test stick in my truck to test the water before I get it. So
Yeah,
there's
definitely.
yeah.
So let's get back to some of the other guys that you've had on your YouTube videos and your Instagrams and that as well.
Mhm.
Unpaved Weekenders on
Mm,
Instagram. They're running a really nice Gladiator.
love it. Yes,
Yeah.
Sebastian. He's or we'll just call him Seb. He's a great guy. I love him, honestly. He reached out. He was doing the East Coast, kind of shindig here, and I asked him. I was like, "Do you reel? Like, do you reel or do you overland? Like, which one are you?" And he's like, "I crawl. Like, I rock crawl." I was like, "Okay, I want to take you to some spots because some people do like it, and it's a good day for them." So,
Yeah.
me, a good day is reeling and camping, and we got to do that with Dave and Seb. So, yeah, I took him through some not like super challenging, but enough. But we unexpectedly my winch broke because we were trying to take out a tree in the way. So we used his winch. So he had a blast that time. It was a good weekend with him.
As long as everybody's smiling and having fun, right? So
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah. And then one of your last YouTube videos was a New Brunswick trip with Mike and Carol of Jeep Overlanding Wannabe on Instagram.
Yeah. Mike and Carol, I love them. They're wonderful people, super welcoming with just the overlanding community in general. And I love that they're same thing with Paved Weekender. I love that they're willing to challenge themselves and go
Yeah.
through some stuff. So yeah, no, they're
Nice.
wonderful people. And I'm going to be seeing them next weekend too. So I'm excited.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. So what is this Jeep nuts thing? Is that like a disease or something like that? Or
It's something like that. Yeah. So I'll keep it short for this one. But when I started Hub City Overlanding, I started getting into off-roading communities like New Brunswick Jeep Club and Jeep Nuts. And the president, Jacques, he actually reached out and him and I just had some beers on the porch, talked, and he wanted to partner because he felt like there's a slightly modified Subaru. He still wanted to be very inclusive with it being not just a Jeep thing, not just
Mhm.
Jeep. So that was the beautiful thing about it. And that was like my first partnership. And that's really what I loved about it. And Jeep Nuts, even though it's worldwide, it was founded in New Brunswick. So that's a beautiful thing.
Nice.
Yeah.
So what are some clubs, or whether they're real or on Facebook, what are some clubs out in the East Coast that you'd recommend for people that want to learn more about the Jeep world or the 4x4 world on the East Coast? Hub City Overlanding on Facebook for sure. We have to check them
Yes.
out.
Well, so Jeep Nuts, great community. There's some wonderful people in New Brunswick Jeep Club as well. And then there's a few others like I've noticed, like PEI. There's Red Sands Adventures. I think he's kind of doing some stuff around PEI, and in Nova Scotia, I think there's Nova Scotia Overlanding as far as Facebook wise. So I know some people in Ontario reached out to a few of those groups to really find spots that were good. Nothing crazy challenging because some vehicles aren't lifted with 37s or 33s or. So yeah, like those are a few to mention. The thing about Hub City Overland community Facebook group is it's more than just New Brunswick. Actually, we have people in Nova Scotia, PEI, and some in Ontario and Quebec. So the thing is, it's just expanding. It's a community. I mean, it's hard to generalize it, but that's the thing is Red Sands Adventures and Nova Scotia Overland, and there's a few that I can really point out that I've got some good bits from.
There's one thing I've noticed about the 4x4 industry over the last 30 years or 40 years is that it's very community orientated. And when I say community, I don't mean like the town that you're in necessarily, but they're very into cultivating friendships and families and that, right? And that's one thing that you don't always see that, say, in the tuner world or the drag racing world or whatever, is that, like I say, the 4x4 world or now the overlanding community is very, very community focused. And we all,
Wonderful.
bug each other about owning Jeeps or Land Rovers, or, well, they should be bugged, but other vehicles, right? And we all bug each other, but in the end, we all go wheeling together and we all have fun and that, right? So that's one thing I love about the 4x4 community for sure.
Oh yeah.
Now,
Oh yeah.
Trisha is a very involved member of the GTA Jeep Girls. Is there any female-based organizations like that over in the East Coast?
Don't know. Actually, that's a good question. I should talk to my girlfriend about that. My girlfriend's in a motorcycle, and I am the general car modified vehicle groups like that are female based, but nothing specific to off-roading per se.
Yeah, it's something that hopefully we see something out there. I know the GTA Jeep Girls is they have everything. And it's quite interesting because there is no males allowed. And they have secret
awesome.
meetups and stuff like that. And it's women that are out there guiding women on the trails and teaching other women. I think it's great. It is awesome.
Oh, I know the Jeep Nuts once in a while, or every year they have a ladies run. They have it once. If the guys want to drive the Jeep, they have to put on dresses.
Yeah.
I did that 1 year, that's for sure, just because I wanted to do it, but my girlfriend drove the Tacoma anyway, so yeah.
And we actually had a really good turnout. And same thing, if guys want to go, they have to wear a dress, and a couple did. But one thing that I found after was the guys are coming up and they're talking about it, and they're like, it is scary on that side of the vehicle. Everything is so much closer. There's like, the cliff is always on the passenger side. And it's like, now you know what they've been saying, right?
Yeah. Now when you're like, when they're screaming or like, you're too close, or like, that's what happened.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, it's very different. It really is, especially when you're so used to it. Steering the ship. So
yeah, it is.
So Toyota is coming out with a hybrid Tacoma. What are your thoughts on electric vehicles for overlanding and wheeling?
The never-ending debates. Full electric, I am against it, unless they can find a way to. No, I would say against it. Maybe specific to overlanding, off-road overlanding, whatever. The hybrid, I kind of like the idea. I do wish, though, it would be a hybrid diesel for that, just because of the mileage you can get out of a diesel, and obviously the hybrid to help. But I don't know how that can work. I don't know. I'm no engineer. I'm an auto engineer, but I'm not that kind of engineer. So I do like the idea. I feel like, though, we're still 10 to 15 years behind with it, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think it's on its way. From my understanding, BC is the most on board with it in regards to having the most, province-wide, having the most fill-up stations or whatever you want to call them, right? But I think we're still a fair ways away. And it was interesting. I was watching a video from the Story Till Now earlier today. And actually, no, sorry, it's Overland. Watching one of his videos, and they got to a point where they're pulling into a town and they're all like down to a quarter tank of fuel. And that town had been evacuated for the last week because of fires, and there's no fuel in town. So they're like, oh crap, we got to go a long ways. And I was thinking about that with electrical, you may have issues with that, right? But having said that, there wouldn't have to be a truck that would have to go there to put the fuel in the tank of the gas station, right? But
that's the thing is, like I said, we're 10 to 15 years behind before that's, and like the fact that, there's been all these like forest fires or even floodings out in the East Coast, like that's a very common thing. It abandons these resources that we need. So like, I can only imagine what they went through and having that, oh shit feeling. Okay. I mean, yes, we got tents, we got maybe electricity, but okay, we still need to move these vehicles. So that's that. Yeah. I like hybrid. I like it maybe for city stuff because, hey, I need that street cred anyway, the overland street cred. But no, like especially in the woods, 3-4 hours in the woods and, no service or anything.
Yep.
That's tough. That's a tough course.
I have some friends that were in a fire situation here. As you know, BC's got a lot of fires happening. And while they didn't have to evacuate, their power was gone for 2 weeks. It still is gone. And so that's another thing too, right? What happens in the case of like you're saying, natural disasters, whether it be floods or fires or whatever, and they're at home, but they don't have power.
Right.
And it's a little rough that way. So
It is rough. I don't know. I mean, we'll get there. Yeah, well, that's the thing. It's all about compromise. Like, where are you willing to compromise? I think we'll get there. I just think that's a whole rabbit trail of conversation, in my opinion, or at least in my view of things. But I like the idea in the fantasy world right now. Just in the reality, I can't. Yeah, I have to go.
No, like I say, it's coming. The network is coming, and it'll happen eventually, right? But it's just it's interesting. Everybody's got different opinions on it, right? So,
yeah, for sure.
Is there anything that you think we missed or we haven't talked about that you wanted to mention?
No, I don't know, man. No, not really. I don't know. I mean, like, if
it's all good.
We could talk, like, we could literally talk and talk and talk. As you know, I like to talk. So, but I think that's really what Hub City, to kind of come down to it all. Hub City, Overland, it's really just a community. Yes, I may have the face of it, but that's all it is. You know, it's funny you brought up Zach. I brought on Zach as an admin for the Facebook page because it started to grow a little bit more. And Zach is such a great character to have. He's so kept in, you know. Obviously he had his Tucson. I don't know if you know now.
I was gonna ask you what happened. You keep on saying had.
How bad is bad?
Well, maybe. How about this? I will say he really pushed that Tucson to the point he took it somewhere where it shouldn't have been. And I will leave the rest of the story for you to chat with him about.
Sounds fair enough. I'm looking forward to that.
It's a great story. It's so much so that I wish I was there. But at the same time, the whole community thing, I was taking some of the Built to Roam crew through some spots in New Brunswick. So, yeah, it was a toss-up, but I really had wanted to take them through some spots in New Brunswick and seeing all the updates of what happened to that Tucson, or not even happened, what it went through. Let Zach tell the story. He's a great storyteller. So, yeah.
Well, we'll definitely have to get him on board as well, too. So.
Absolutely. But no, I was just saying, Zach, great guy. I'm glad I brought him on to kind of help around and represent it. So, yeah.
That's great.
So our last question we always ask our guests is, what Canadian we like to hear on the 4x4 Canada podcast?
Well, I've already kind of alluded to two of them, so but maybe I'll add another one. So, Nick from Adventure Trail Gear, you got to get him on. He's got a lot of good stories. And then Dak from The Lost Bike, he's a great one to pick through. I'll actually add two more to that list. So, I don't know if you've had him yet. Actually, I apologize for not doing that research. Is Jason Jason from Canadian Battle Wagon?
No, we haven't. I follow him on Instagram, but we haven't had him on yet. And he's running a Subaru, isn't he?
He's a Subaru, and I've met him, and he's taking pictures of my rig.
Yeah, he's a great, phenomenal photographer. Yeah, him, and then I think I'm doing Nick, maybe Nigel, because they're kind of like two peas in a pod from Adventure Trail Gear. So that's what I recommend.
Perfect. No, that's great.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's one of the reasons we asked that question, because there's so many people that we don't know. As small as the 4x4 community is, there is so many people that we don't know. We've gotten some great suggestions by asking that question. So
no, that's awesome. I'm glad to hear.
Thank you for that input. So
yeah, I'm glad to add. Honestly, it's a good thing to keep it real with the real people.
And that's one of the reasons we like talking to the owners of the companies, especially these small companies like Adventure Trail Gear and Ian from Afraid Not Ropes. And these are the legit guys. Usually guys are working till 10 o'clock at night, finish something, or they're stuff like that, right? So we like talking to smaller business owners and that as well too. So once again, we're talking to Ryan from Hub City Overland. You can check him out YouTube, Instagram, and apparently Facebook.
Just hit that join group on Facebook. Keep it growing. Share your adventures. Share everything. If you got a question, send one of us a message by all means, but join it. We love seeing people's adventures, and maybe, heck, who knows? Maybe I'll be going out the West Coast and meet you guys, and you can take me some spots. So it's a plan. It's a dream. It's a plan.
It's a dream for myself to get back out in the East Coast as well too. So I've been a little bit out in Newfoundland doing the fall color photography, and absolutely gorgeous, right? But I have not really spent much time on the smaller islands and that. So I definitely want to get out there. And I know Trisha's a huge traveling fan, so
I'd love to take the Jeep
You're
out
welcome.
there.
We're East Coasters. We're asking you shower seats.
exactly, yes. Awesome, Ryan, Hub City Overland. Really appreciate you taking the time. I know that you're like 4 hours ahead of me and, well, an hour ahead of Trisha, but really appreciate you taking the time on the Monday evening on a long weekend. And been great chatting with you.
Likewise, I appreciate you having me on here. And yeah, I can't wait to meet you guys in person someday soon. That'll be a blast, honestly. It would be.
Yeah, definitely. If you come back out to an Overland North event, maybe we'll get Trisha out there with you and do some chatting. So
there's some talks about that. I'll keep you posted. All right.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. Sounds good.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody. It's been a great evening, and we will chat soon.